Good morning, Mr. President. I, Ms. Rodriguez, as EPA Director, propose the following points to curtail global climate change. Mr. President, it is clear today that the amount of damage caused by pollution has set us in a place of no return. Many will try to argue that climate change is false because the climate is constantly changing, that it's not a real issue. Mr. President, climate change is real, and although we cannot stop it, we can help suppress its negative effects, which is why we need to act now, and I recommend the following plan of action. First, we should start with a clean power plan. Second, negotiate with other countries to protect oceans. And finally, be stricter on our federal laws and punishments for those who harm our environment. Power plants account for nearly 40% of U.S. carbon dioxide emissions. That's more than every car, truck, and airplane combined in the U.S. With a stricter enforcement on the Clean Air Act, our carbon emissions would be reduced by 42% and achieve a 30% renewable energy by 2030. The U.S. can affordably cut global warming emissions, chart a course towards a clean energy future, and deliver significant health and economic benefits to all Americans. Next, we should negotiate with other countries to protect our oceans. Land use is complicated, unlike oceans, or at least large portions of it. They can be protected by executive fiat, just like President Bush did in 2006 when he declared the world's largest marine monument northwest of Hawaii. Mr. President, you could do the same with other parts of the ocean and even negotiate with other countries to protect oceans. Clean oceans mean a future for all of us and all of the people around the world. Remember that marine plants produce between 70 and 80% of all the oxygen in the atmosphere. And if oceans are not safe, then the people are in danger as well, for we cannot live without oxygen. Next, we should also be stricter on our federal laws and punishment for those who harm our environment. We need to stop granting favors to big companies and stop covering and ignoring the breach of law by large industries. Money is not worth the cost of innocent lives. For these reasons, Mr. President, I ask that you act now and apply my plan of action. Do not prioritize money over our citizens' lives. Thank you.
Mr. President, I, Madison Adelstein, the UN Ambassador, propose the following idea to decrease the threat of global climate change. Climate change is a global issue that does not respect our national borders. Pollutant discharge anywhere affects people from every region and every nation around the world. It is an issue that requires solutions that need to be coordinated at the international level, meaning adding on to the members of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is an agreement within the United Nations that deals with the regulation of emission of greenhouse gases. Many developing nations are opposed to the idea of the Paris Agreement because it seems unfair. However, it is more unfair to force our pollutants onto not only the people of our own nation, but of people of nations that aren't even our own. If anything, the Paris Agreement is the most fair for not only the citizens that the world takes care of now, but for the generations to come. It is extremely urgent that we take charge of climate change now. People claim that global climate change should not be taken seriously because the globe's climate has always fluctuated. They don't seem to realize that the world has never changed climate as rapidly as it is now. For instance, the Pacific island nation of Kiribati has declared that the rapid increase of water temperatures over the past 6 years have left their lands uninhabitable. Taking charge and fighting against global climate change now makes the most sense in regards to economics as well. The longer it takes for us to take action, the more we pay. We have to pay to keep up with our people's health. We have to pay to clean our water and our air. We have to pay to rebuild the areas that can no longer withstand life due to our new poisonous man-made smog. There is no doubt that the Earth would be better off with this agreement being put into place globally. This agreement will help push humanity closer to reaching the goal of sustainability. The agreement will provide all the tools we need in order to not only address, but slow down enough to allow humanity to adapt to the damages already committed by climate change. It is for these reasons that we see no other reasonable answer to the tragedy of climate change than the Paris Agreement.
Good morning, Mr. President. I, Adonis Birch-Franklin, U.S. Secretary of Treasury, propose the following to change global warming. Climate change is a huge problem to today's society and needs to address immediately. It's something we can't just put a Band-Aid over. We need to change as soon as possible. First, we need to understand where the problems of global warming are coming from. For this, we need a call of action for all the countries to come together and meet in a public place, and we need to hear all the issues that are facing different nations around the world. Then we need to start right here in the U.S. and factor in our problems and address them immediately. To do this, we need to stop tax cut all non-carbon emitting companies, and this will help promote big companies going greener faster, and this is ultimately better for the environment. Then we're going to cut all red tape off of everyday people putting clean energy into their homes. This includes solar, wind turbines, anything you can find you can put in your homes without permits or anything like that. And then lastly, putting programs in school to teach kids about clean energy. This will ultimately provide a ripple effect for generations to come after us, because the kids are the future, and time is now to change global warming. Thank you.
Mr. President, I, Jessica De Loera, the National Security Advisor, propose the following to solve this deadly global climate change that we are facing. Now, climate change will undermine efforts to decrease world poverty, directly threatening people's homes and livelihoods through increasing storms, droughts, diseases, and other stressors. Not only will this delay and prevent development, it will also increase national and regional instability and intensify income disparities between rich and poor. This in turn will lead to military confrontations over distribution on the world's wealth, which will feed terrorism and transnational crime. These are crimes that have potential effect across national borders and crimes that are inside the states, in which fundamental values of the international community. This does not sound like a world I would like to live in, and I bet neither would you. Mr. President, I hope you take into consideration my proposition and that you will see that global warming is indeed real and not a myth.
Mr. President, I, Estefania Cortes, the Chief of Staff, propose the following to change global climate change. But first, I will state some of the effects. First, the CO2 content of the atmosphere is rising, and due to its rise in the atmosphere, it is presently largely paralleled by the increase in fossil fuel combustion. Combustion of fossil fuels results in emission of CO2, so it is inevitably reasonable to link the two increases. The expected increase in the energy of the lower troposphere may cause long-term changes in the climate and thermosphere, which could be characterized by increasing frequency and/or magnitude of extreme weather events, an increase in sea temperatures, a reduction in ice cover, and many other changes. The greatest threat is that sea levels may rise and flood large areas that are densely inhabited. So what's the single biggest way we can make an impact on our global climate change? We can talk to our friends and family and make sure our representatives are making good decisions. And by voicing our concerns via social media, better yet, directly to our elected officials, we send a message that we care about the warming world. We can also encourage Congress to enact new laws that limit carbon emissions and require polluters to pay for the emissions they produce. That way, we can help protect public lands and stop offshore drilling. We can also choose a utility company that generates at least half its power from wind or solar and has been certified by Green E-Energy, an organization that vets renewable energy options. But if that isn't possible, many electric utilities now list other ways to support renewable resources on their monthly savings website. And among these, building, heating, and cooling are among the biggest uses of energy.
Mr. President, I, Abigail Menita, as the Secretary of State, propose the following points to advise, change, or dismiss global climate change. Global warming is having significant and harmful effects on our communities, our health, and our climate. Sea level rise is accelerating, the number of large wildfires is growing, dangerous heat waves are becoming more common, extreme storms events are increasing in many areas, more severe droughts are occurring in others.
Rising sea level. If current trends continue, it could become more difficult to grow plentiful and affordable food for a rising global population. Low-lying areas, including many of the world's major cities, could be forced to build expensive flood defenses, and more extreme heat waves could threaten the safety of millions of people and cause destruction that costs a lot of money. Carbon dioxide is the most important of the 6 major greenhouse gases. These gases trap the sun's heat close to Earth, causing the planet to warm, which is melting our glaciers and killing our environments. We could stop the way we burn fossils to get power, heat, transport, and industry that is releasing greenhouse gas into our atmosphere. We could stop this by using renewable energy, for example, solar energy. Solar energy could not only be good for our Earth, but it could earn and save money. Climate change will undetermined efforts to mitigate world poverty, directly threatening people's homes and livelihoods through increased storms, drought, disease, and other stressors. Greenhouse gas emissions are expected to double over the next 50 years, causing global temperature to rise 3 C or more by the end of the century. Nuclear power inspires public fears about the safety of nuclear plants and safety and costs. In conclusion, we should promote this course of action for the reasons to change how this would affect global change. The effects of climate change pose risk not only to the environment, but also to security and livelihood of people in the United States and around the world.
Greetings, Mr. President. I, Adrey, Otto, your Vice President. My job is to make sure to enhance and fill your position when you're absent, as well to give you references. We have an issue of the Earth's climate change as to global warming. Let's start from broad to more specific of the concept. Our climate has become much warmer due to the factors of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere had increased. The causes are the usage of natural resources such as oil, gases, and coal are being used more than a limit, as well to the expansion of greenhouses, nitric acid production, and the burning of biomass. To be more in depth, because of the human activities, people are burning fossil fuels, changing the lifestyle of agriculture, using more energy and water, cutting out plants, and etc. These resources are being used more extent than it should be. For my assistance for the youth, I want the educational board to remove the unnecessary material that are being taught to the students and replace them of the subject of a world society, so they can be evolved and help make the world a much better place. Doing minor actions such as recycling, conserving water and electricity. This will not only benefit us to save money, but it can also help our world environment as well. Secondly, we need to restrain our healthcare programs and other programs as well. We need to start focusing on the things that will have large amount of impact on us. If we don't try to work together and unite, then we have many tasks on our list. Thank you.
Mr. President, I, Janine Glasgow, Secretary of Homeland Security, propose the following points to change, curtail, or dismiss global climate change. First, as Secretary of Homeland Security, although we are to patrol borders and keep out terrorists, we do not build as many fences around borders due to the fact of adding more pollution to the air, which is resulting in playing a part in the global climate change. Climate change will affect critical infrastructure, personnel, missions, and facilities in the near and distant future. Taking climate change into consideration is a fundamental goal of this document. It will serve to proactively safeguard non-military federal facilities and operations nationwide. Homeland Security is adding more global climate change around the world, which means climate is changing, meaning food, crops, and agriculture is changing, which is resulting into the migration of people from all around the world to come to America. Meaning, as Homeland Security, we have to build more infrastructure, which is putting more pollution to the atmosphere, resulting in climate change not only in America, but also around the world. As stated in the General Homeland Security review, natural hazards are becoming more costly to address, with increasingly variable consequences due in part to drivers such as climate change and interpreted and aging infrastructure. The natural hazards are considered to be droughts, floods, and hurricanes, which are all considered to take part in global climate change. Climate change is not just a global problem, but also a threat to domestic security. A changing climate will present threats to U.S. infrastructure, agriculture, economy, and population. Climate change will therefore directly affect America's homeland security of its citizens.
Good morning, Mr. President. I, Trevino, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs and Staff, propose the following 5 points to help change global climate change. Climate change is affecting all parts of the world, and although it isn't the biggest problem right now, we need to address it before it becomes a problem that is no longer fixable. My first suggestion is that the national security consequences of climate change should be fully integrated into national security and national defense strategies. The intelligence community should incorporate climate consequences into its national intelligence estimate. Second, the U.S. should commit to a stronger national and international role to help stabilize climate change at levels that will avoid significant distribution of global security and stability. Third, the U.S. should commit a global partnership that helps less developed nations build the capacity and resilience to better manage climate impacts. Fourth, the Department of Defense should enhance its operational compatibility by accelerating the adoption of improved business processes and innovate technologies that result in improved U.S. combat power throughout energy efficiency. And my fifth and final suggestion is that the Department of Defense should conduct an assessment of the impact on the U.S. military installations worldwide of rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and other projected climate change impacts over the next 30 to 40 years. In conclusion, we should promote this course of action to help our environment and our people. Thank you.
Mr. President, I, Abigail Menita, as the Secretary of State, propose the following points to advise, change, or dismiss global climate change. Global warming is having significant and harmful effects on our communities, our health, and our climate. Sea level rise is accelerating, the number of large wildfires growing, dangerous heat waves are becoming more common, extreme storm events are increasing in many areas, more severe droughts are occurring in others. Rising sea level. If current trends continue, it could become more difficult to grow plentiful and affordable food for a rising global population. Low-lying areas, including many of the world's major cities, could be forced to build expensive flood diseases, and more extreme heat waves could threaten the safety of millions of people and cause destruction that costs a lot of money. Carbon dioxide is the most important of the 6 major greenhouse gases. These gases trap the sun's heat close to Earth, causing the planet to warm, which is melting our glaciers and killing our environments. We could stop the way we burn fossils to get power, heat, transport, and industry that is releasing greenhouse gas into our atmosphere. We could stop this by using renewable energy, for example, solar energy. Solar energy could not only be good for our Earth, but it could earn and save money. Climate change will undetermined efforts to mitigate world poverty, directly threatening people's homes and livelihoods through increased storms, drought, disease, and other stressors. Greenhouse gas emissions are expected to double over the next 50 years, causing global temperature to rise 3 C or more by the end of the century. Nuclear power inspires public fears about the safety of nuclear plants and safety and costs. In conclusion, we should promote this course of action for the reasons to change how this would affect global change. The effects of climate change pose risk not only to the environment, but also to security and livelihood of people in the United States and around the world.
President, I, Unisa, Kanu, and Director of National Intelligence, propose the following points to curtail global climate change. Mr. President, the current warming trend is of particular significance because most of it is extremely likely greater than 95% probability to the result of human activities since the mid-20th century. Earth orbiting satellites and other technology advance has enabled scientists to see the big picture, collecting many different types of information about our planet and its climate on a global scale. This body of data collected over many years revealed the signals of a change in climate. Mr. President, my first point that I want to curtail is to forgo fossil fuels by eliminating the burning of coal, oil, and natural gas. It is perhaps the most denoting challenge as richer nations literally eat, wear, work, play, and even sleep on the products made from short fossilized sunshine. Mr. President, my second point is infrastructure upgrade. Buildings worldwide contribute around 1/3 of greenhouse gas emission, which is 43% in the US alone. Even though investing in thick isolation and other cost-effective, temperature regulating steps can save money in the long run. Electric grids are at a capacity of overloaded, but power demand continues to rise, and bad roads can lower the fuel economy of even the most effective vehicle. Investing in new infrastructure or radical upgrading existing highways and transmission lines will help cut greenhouse gases emissions and drive economic growth in the developing countries. My third point is we should be efficient. The potential simpler and even bigger impact can be made by doing more with less. Good driving and good car maintenance, such as making sure the tires are properly inflated, can limit the amount of greenhouse gas emission from a vehicle and perhaps more importantly lower the frequency of payments at the pump. Mr. President, I also believe we should put strict laws towards the cutting down of forest trees. Every year, 33 million acres of forest are cut down. Timber harvesting in the tropics alone contributes 1.5 billion metric tons of carbon to the atmosphere. That represents 20% of human-made greenhouse gas emission, and a source that could be avoided relatively easily. Improve agricultural practice along with paper recycling and forest management, balancing the amount of food taken out with the amount of new trees growing will quickly eliminate this significant chunk of emission. My final point that I want to curtail is for people to move closer to work. Transportation is the second leading source of greenhouse gas emission in the US. Burning a single gallon of gasoline produces 20% of CO2. There is also the option of working home and telecommunicating several days a week. Cutting down on long distance travel will also help, most notable the airplane flights, which are one of the fastest growing sources of greenhouse gas emission and a source that arguably release source emission in the worst possible spots, higher in the atmosphere. Restricting flying to only critical long distance trips in many parts of the world. Therefore, trains can replace planes for short to medium distance trips will help curb airplane emission.